You're all set. Have a good meeting.
Thank you. I'll call the meeting to order at 6:04. As we do every meeting, we have to read our statement of commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Scituate Waterways Commission is committed to providing an environment of respect during meetings. We ask that all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there's a disagreement. We value the participation of our community, and we want all participants, including marginalized and minoritized communities, to feel welcomed and respected. We ask our committee members and all who participate to commit to these standards to support and respect our community. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Thank you. Any discussion? We'll do a roll call. Mike Gibbons.
Aye.
Stephen Moan.
Aye.
Brian Cronin.
Aye.
Dave Haley.
Aye.
David Sinkowski.
Here.
Brian Kelly.
Here.
Howie.
Here.
And Dave, yes, those are all for yeses to approve the agenda. Of March 6th, I gave Alicia the wrong set, so there were a couple issues. I don't know if anybody had a chance to read them. Luckily, I got my red pen out, just like my mother used to do when I was in English back in the early elementary school grades. So then I hid under the table. We're better now. One of her questions was on page 2, the Harbor Master's report, whether or not she wanted the discussion on the Woods Hole group survey to be moved around. And that's a nope, so I've corrected that.
Operational criteria. Says the insurance company policy is requesting that, they're not requesting. This GEI report came out and the insurance company may require it.
Is requesting, yeah, may require, got it,
May require.
got it, thank you. Okay, I will get that one fixed, thank you. On Harbor Master Report, item B, it's the Army Corp, CORP, change that one. If I'm going too quick, I'm sorry, please just throw something at me. The rest of the Harbor Master's report looked good. Was there anything else that I was missing? I wrote nope. The AI has been very, very helpful, and really for Alyssa to be able to go through things and get them done accurately has been very, very helpful. So there was nothing else that she missed here. I put another nope. On liaison reports.
Oh, there's on updates on Cohasset Harbor.
Yes, sir.
Harbor Master reports that Cohasset invoices have gone up. Should we have multiple?
Yep, thank you.
Dave, under the C Harbor Masters Building feasibility study, the last sentence, it says to begin the process of RFP for architects. Is that the right word, architects, or someone to provide to do a feasibility study?
No,
It's the architects that will
they're
do the
doing,
feasibility.
yeah, they will be doing the feasibility study, Howie,
Okay.
an architectural company. Thank you. Page 4, liaison reports. Item C. Mike Gibbons reported that 11 or 12, it's test pits.
Yeah.
We're
Test
done.
bores or test pits.
Test pit, test bore. We're done along Cole Parkway area as part of the engineering. Under the police department update, the officer that was here was Craig Keith. An officer called his absence, and he shared that there was an oil issue with the new police boat due to the cold weather and has since been corrected. Was there anything else that anybody saw that we need to update?
Yeah,
None.
Dave,
Oh,
I had one under the, hold on a second here. Under the Scituate Maritime parking lot, I want to clarify, Phil Johnson, is not shooting grades where he's able. Phil Johnson is merely a volunteer who has experience with these types of projects, to help us through it with the town engineers. The town engineers, say they will be shooting the grades as soon as the boats have been removed so that they can do that process. So I think we need to clarify that. And they will then decide, do some design work and decide how the drainage should work also.
Very good. Thank you. Are there any other comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes for the March 6th meeting.
Make the motion to accept the March 6th meeting minutes.
We have a first and a second by Mike and Stephen. Any discussion? Well, Mike and Brian. Oh, was it Brian?
Yeah, this is pretty much.
I thought he was doing your best. I thought he was doing your best impression. Okay, we'll do a roll call vote for this motion. Mike,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Dave Sinkowski, Brian
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Howie,
Aye.
Dave passes. Thank you. Item 4, there's no correspondence. Item 5, the chairman's report. I'd like to thank the library staff and Seth for spending 45 minutes going through all the systems in this beautiful building down here to make sure that we're having a more effective meeting. I'm sorry about last month's where it just was a tough situation, and Mike and I spent a little bit of time on it over the weekend talking about it, and we probably should have just bagged the meeting since people really couldn't hear that well. So we'll do a better job as we move forward. So we spent quite a bit of time, and they found out they've got some major problems with their podium over there. But they were very helpful, and we got everything figured out, and it's a much better meeting. It's all funny because the next 3 months we'll be back down to the Maritime Center for our meetings. So we'll see how that goes.
Brian's asking a question.
Yes, sir, Brian.
So actually, a quick point, for those of us that are remote, I can tell you that this new OWL system that they're using in the library is really, really great stuff to be on a Zoom call on. So just a thank you to the town and the library staff, what you said, for acquiring the OWL technologies, and it's really helpful out here. So thank you.
That's great. It
Second
took
that.
a while for us to really understand how the whole technology came together, but you know, like I said, the library director, Colleen, one of the staff, and Seth, we just sort of put our heads down and got things figured out and found some challenges here. So thank you. I know they'll appreciate that. Harbor Master's report.
Harbor Master's reports. We've been collecting invoices, payments and all the documentation required, all the voters. Public housing. Invoices that were approximately sent out, we probably collected about 400. And it's just under 15 days left.
Okay. Do you send out a reminder to anybody?
We did.
Steve, what did you say? Should we come in and see you first? I keep getting a reminder email.
No, don't worry, the commercial guys don't have to worry about that.
Can you,
We'll send
I
something out
stopped
to the
in,
commercial.
spoke to
You're
Mike.
Dave, is that something that you can just sort of give a heads up to a lot of your folks that?
Yeah, it's been spread around pretty quickly. It was
The only,
much appreciated.
the only thing that would be required is if they have a recreation mooring or recreation, so they still have to pay out.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And I talked with, a couple.
Yeah, there's not many that fall like that.
No.
Thank you.
I know money.
Excuse me, Stephen, you're saying 400 what?
400 people have paid.
Oh, okay, I don't know how many,
Approximately, I believe Alan said around 1,000.
really? And the deadline's at 15?
Everybody waits the last 3 days and you get inundated.
That's how it always goes.
And your office is closed, I saw on that same day,
No,
or the day after?
we extended it to the 16th. Because we're closed on the 15th,
Yeah.
because of the holiday.
Yeah. You
We
mean,
will not be there on the 15th, so don't come by.
not all set. Okay.
I'm gonna wait till the 16th now, get an extra day.
What else is new?
What, 100 and wait till 70.
Okay,
We're in the same pattern as we were with the Woods Hole Group, the dredging. We're just waiting to hear back from Corps. I'm working with Paul Scott on the RFP for the feasibility study for the building.
Mhm.
And Sean and also Corey Miles. We're in the process of collecting all the documents that we need from the returning staff and new staff. Once we do that, we'll bring some of them in to start putting some of the fingers back together over at the Scituate Maritime Center, and we'll be pulling out the icers, pressure washing them, breaking them down, removing the zinc, re-zinking them, and putting them away for the summertime.
yeah,
We probably used them
not needed.
4 or 5 times this year, and it was just skim ice. We did it just to kind of run them, exercise them a little bit, so we didn't have issues with it.
Could you, I got a couple quickies, how things go with the dinghy changes?
It was everybody that showed up got a dinghy spot, and they're all the dinghy spots, and we had just enough.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
nobody got left out?
Nobody got left out, and we don't have any left.
That's great. Kayak program still the same as it was last year?
Yeah, I think Mike checked the box to see how many names are in it. We will probably sign those in the next couple of weeks. I think everybody in the box will get one.
Okay, good. What's going on with the pile driving?
Mile driving, so we had to, or I had to, put out a bid document to replace 4 piles broken at the town pier and add 1 pile at Jericho Road. We had 3 different prices. We did have 1 contractor that was working in the area, so we saved on the mob and demob. Project's complete. All 4 piles are been replaced at Cole Parkway, and the 1 pile has been added over the Jericho Road boat ramp. So we're good there. Town pier, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Town pier. And in the 9 years I've been here, or coming up on 9 years, we haven't had 1 broken piling at the pier along the pier itself. We've had a couple break during storm events where boats pushed up against where the floats are,
Mhm.
broken there or pulled them out. I don't know why we had 4 this year. And it was they weren't all 4 at once, and they're not all bunched together. It was 3 on the face, 1 at the end, and on the south side, and 2, but not side by side on the north side, and then on the northern side of the east end, east side, and then 1 on the north side. But they're all been replaced. They did a great job. So that's complete.
Good.
So when I first saw that, I was thinking, last year you were saying they were gonna add some pilings, move them into the main floats.
I'm waiting for a Army Corps permit.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
Yeah.
you're waiting on.
Permit, yeah, so even though we're in a reconfiguration zone, because the marina is in part of the federal channel or Anchorage, we have to still get permission from them. If it's outside of those areas,
Yeah.
then I could just do it. And just send them a notification, and I send Concom a message, and they send DEP, and it's more of just paperwork, so they know what's going on. We don't really ask them permission. We do have to ask permission from Corps.
Right.
Mhm.
Yes, Howard.
I guess, I have kind of two questions. One, how much did this cost us? And two, do we have the money or where did the money come from?
So, when the initial pier project was done, there was some money left over that, we tried to return back to Seaport Advisory. They asked us to keep it in a repair account, which we did. We've used it to repair some of the hoists over the years and a motor. And there was approximately just shy of $10,000 left. And that took care of the piles at the town pier. And then we have a grant for the pile over at Jericho.
So do we have enough money to cover, or did we have to?
It's all been accounted for and being paid. There was no Waterways Enterprise Fund expended.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm
We're
asking.
not,
No, it's fine.
we're not an amount, there could have been a couple of $100 or $500, but it's not an amount that's, gonna change.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
I was very lucky in getting a contractor because it cost about, probably over double to get it done otherwise.
I know
Just
some of the
the mold
mold and
and
demo, yeah, costs are always a challenge.
So at the town pier, excuse me, it's Cole Parkway, do you have to get additional funding next year to do that?
Well,
That-
we still have, an open, available borrow. And that would come out, we'd have to go back to borrow the money to move those.
Okay,
And there's seven piles, but it's gonna free up 2 slips, and it's also gonna give us a better ADA locations for people with disabilities.
right, so that kind of falls back under the project. And
Yeah, and the project, the money hasn't been borrowed, but it would be borrowed. There's still $400,000 or $500,000 that's available.
Yeah,
to be
so it
borrowed.
doesn't hit the operational cost, it hits the project cost.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions on the piles?
Question.
Yes, sir.
Brad White, Old Main Street Commercial. Steve, I'm just curious, if it was 10,000 for, what do you say, 3 pilings? Is it 3,000 a piling? I'm just.
No, it's got to do, there was some other costs, over at Jericho. They're bolting on a new, dock, and they have to bolt that up, so some of the money came out of that as well. There's a total of just around $20,000,
Wow, for 4 pilings?
5 piles, and to install a new float.
Is the float serviceable the other side, like what they're
No, it's
talking about?
not. Because then we'd have, if we did that, then when we go to replace those floats, then we'd have to come back in and move that pile. And it's all up to the state, and this was the path of least resistance with the state. I just needed to get that float done.
Yeah.
And that pump station operational.
So the pump station is gonna be online this year?
That's what I'm working towards.
Is that,
I got the pump station's in my office. It's in my garage right now.
is that on the side of the Jericho pier that I've been talking about, trying to make that more serviceable? Is that
Yeah, it would be, so it would be the hose and the,
Device.
well, not the device. The device will be up in the parking lot. But the push button station and where you store the hose, it's gonna be on the dock.
So just in conclusion, it's about 4,000 a piling nowadays, it sounds like.
Depends on the size of the pile, type of pile.
Yeah, I remember they used to get 1,000, that wasn't too long ago. This is an extraction. Yeah,
You gotta pull it out, you gotta unbolt stuff
Yeah.
and rebolt stuff and put fender back on.
Yeah.
There's more to it.
all right, thank you.
So the pilings on the pier were all like the ones that are against the pier.
Yeah, the ones that run on the, around the 3 sides. The only side that didn't take any damage was the south side of the pump pier.
Yeah, like you said, that there's more construction, it's not just driving piles on.
No, they actually had to unbolt the sections that were left because there were 2 piles that were actually missing the center. And then 2 that were just snapped in 2, but still in place. So at low tide, they had to go out, on the low tide area, and then as the tide came up, we were to unfold the rubber fender.
Yeah, so it was a lot, it wasn't just driving a car, it was a lot, yeah.
I also think that they didn't feel that it was gonna be as much work.
And when was it here redone?
The pier was redone in about 2012. These may or may not have been new piles. It's tough to really tell. If you go out to the pier today, there's sections that are probably 12 by 12 or 15 by 15 that kind of border the whole end of the pier. And you go out on the north, south, or east side towards the east side, it's all new. And then as you get further back, it's all material about the same size. And some of the piles may or may not have changed around those areas. And these weren't green hearts, these southern yellow pines. 12-inch, Class B 40-footers.
Is that what you replaced them with?
David,
So just to add, those are supposed to absorb any damage, so the pier itself doesn't, so they're expendable, although they're expensive, but they're a buffer between the steel sheeting and the catwalk on the pier and the pavement to the boat, so it did what it was supposed to do, and it looks like they did a nice job,
I did a beautiful job.
yeah, replacing it, so. They should have swept up when they were done, but that's okay.
hey, Dave, just for the record, name, address. please.
Dave Doffney, 356 Clap Road.
Thank you,
The
sir.
nor'easter is gonna sweep forward.
Excellent. Well, that's good. How's things going with our dock boxes? Any interest?
They've had a couple of people. They've asked the sizes, so we printed it out.
Okay, couple more quick ones. Cohasset Harbor, any updates or anything that you've heard?
No,
You're getting money in still?
Yep. We're asking, if we collect the money and deem that it's Cohasset, what are we gonna do? Is that we're just gonna give the money back.
Mhm.
Um,
You have a way to fund, having, us in the harbor for the season?
Yeah, the problem is finding a location. Because I could put a mooring out there,
Mhm.
but we'd have to swim to.
Yep.
I've gone to several locations over at Cohasset. Their sailing center, the Cohasset Marina, and nobody really has any interest in allowing us to rent a dinghy spot. I said, I'm looking for it for free.
The Cohasset Harvest one is it?
No. Cohasset won't assist.
It's tough.
It's, I think, above everybody's pay grade
Way
here,
above my pay.
so we're just,
Conversations.
we're just hanging out and, waiting to see what happens, but I hear that you guys have been at least getting prepared and trying to figure out how you're gonna manage, having a unit over there and people and,
Yeah, we have-
emergency services.
Like right now, we have an 8-foot inflatable that we have in the garage, and we had purchased that so that if there was ever an incident in one of the back creeks, under the Edward Foster Bridge,
Mhm.
that we could get up into those areas.
Mm.
And that, surprisingly enough, when that gentleman dove in and drowned at Edward Foster,
Mm.
the boat showed up that day. Glad, it wasn't there in time for us because it showed up at about 4 o'clock, but we had already had it on order.
Oh, boy. Yeah,
So we'd probably move that boat over by trailer and use that to get out, or we get a little paddle boards or a canoe or something. I don't think you're
okay. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions for Stephen?
How many mornings out of it? Or North Situate?
No, Scituate, is probably 60 or 70
Wow, awesome.
on that side. Lion's share.
I just, Dave Doffney, 356 Clap Road. I've tried a number of times for a request for public information from Cohasset for a list of mooring holders, owners and locations, and have, over the last 3 months, have not received anything. So, so obviously there needs to be service done, there has to be, inspections done, and, it has to be brought in, and there's zero. And I don't know if it's true or not, but they said, I heard from one customer that said that Cohasset wasn't giving skip dinghy tie-up permits to people who have moorings on the Scituate side of Cohasset Harbor.
And who pays to it? We heard.
Okay, well, it's just,
Well, we're gonna continue to sort of let, the select board,
This is a
manage that
Town
piece.
council level.
no,
select board level,
I understand, I'm just,
Town administrator, it's not Stephen Moan level, for sure.
I didn't say it was, I'm just saying that there's a level of expectations that have to be met by the mooring owners
Hmm.
and the mooring service companies that are trying to service the moorings and inspect them. And there's no place to beach a stone to work on it, to be compliant with the, some difficulties here that are gonna come down the road, and we're just trying to navigate that, so. I don't
Sneak up with the police department.
Yeah.
Beach.
A long way around.
That's for sure.
Brandy might have more.
I don't really, I don't have any answers for you.
No, I'm not asking for answers,
Yeah.
okay, I'm just giving you a position from a mooring service provider that's trying to meet the expectations of the customers. It's not happening,
This is, but
okay,
you had a public records request through the town of Cohasset.
5 times.
It's not a Stephen Moan or a town of Scituate question, that's a Cohasset question, why are they?
So let me advance the question. Does the Scituate Harbor Master's Office have that information?
We have a few, we have some names.
All right, would I have to do a public request for that, or is that, and do I come in the office and get a list?
You probably have, right now, you probably have to do a public record request. Sorry, I don't want to give something of them,
It's probably something you can ask, the TA and then get back to David on that. Fran,
I've done quite a bit of work in Cohasset for the last 30 years. And their standards are not the same as Scituate's.
Yeah, 5 years versus 3 years, and
What's gonna happen when it's inspected and it doesn't even come close?
then they're gonna have to bring it up to standards. Just like if somebody's mooring is done in Scituate Harbor and, you pull it up and it's the year that everything is no good, you're gonna have to fix it and bring it up into compliance.
They know that. I mean, have the new Scituate,
They follow the same,
have they received records of
They-
copies of the,
they've been told as they're coming in that they're required to follow our rules and regulations and our inspections requirements.
good, Brad.
A
Then we're
question,
gonna
Brad
move on.
White, on Main Street. Stephen, based on 2003, how many unassigned,
2003,
23, I'm sorry. How many unassigned moorings were there? And we're going into 2024, you won't know that until April 17th, but were there any unassigned moorings or are there?
in 23, yes,
Yeah, about how many?
I don't know. Mike Pierce handles the mooring assignments. I can find out for you.
Okay, so he's,
Mike Pierce, man, he assigns all the slips and he assigns all the moorings.
so he had great success with the dinghies, so I would imagine that there are a lot of people.
I know this winter, he assigned, everything, I think in Outer Harbor and Rivers.
Just make sure people get a bite of the apple, All right, so there are some, but he's working.
I don't think there's any left in the Outer Harbor.
All right, thank you.
Let's, anybody else? Everybody good? Let's move on to our financial report. Mr. Kelly,
So I've got nothing to report above and beyond what Mr. Cronin's going to speak about. Due to the fact that our revenues really will not show any sign of movement until probably our June meeting, because of the fact that people who pay with credit cards, people who walk in the Harbor's Master's office on the 15th, by the time that clears and gets posted through the town hall system back to us, it probably will miss our May meeting. So above and beyond that, I've got nothing to report.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
I do have one thing, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, your time's up.
Okay, I got nothing to report. The emergency spend that we had last month to bring it up to code, the Cole Parkway Marina. I'm not exactly sure what it was. It was electrical related. I was not on last month's call. That will be converted to long-term debt, probably 10 years. And we'll add about $10,000 to our debt service beginning on once we go out on a bond authorization, which I believe will be scheduled for July. Now I have nothing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Howard.
I have a point of clarification on that because the last meeting, I asked the question, how much was this gonna cost? It was kind of a surprise. At that meeting, we were told 70 to 75,000. Further, we were told that the money was available. We had that money. So, Brian, what you just told us is that's really not the case. We didn't have the cash. We're gonna have to bond this particular transaction, which is gonna go to our bottom line, right, with debt service.
Holly, when the question was asked to me, when I said that the money's available, it's because there's still $500,000 approximately that can be borrowed towards that project. Nancy, you know, if I bring something in and it gets approved, how it's managed or where the money comes from, that's up to Nancy. But the money is, if there's something to do on that project, there is still money available. That's what I'm sorry if you misunderstood, but that's what I meant.
Well, do you have, I hear you and I appreciate that. How much money is still left? Do we have any idea?
I believe it's like $400,000 or $500,000. I'm not 100% sure. Brian might know better than I do.
There's no money left, Howie. There's the ability to borrow, and that's
Yeah,
what
okay.
Stephen was going down the road to answer. We do not have any funds available to utilize for anything. We do have the ability to utilize without going to the Board of Selectmen, without going to the TA. We have the ability to borrow against that as long as it is deemed to be part of the existing project. So 5 years from now, we can't decide we're going to do something new there. That this is a vehicle available to us as long as the project is active and alive.
Perfect. Thank you, Brian.
Sure.
Great, thank you. Okay, thank you, guys. Next, we want to hear from our working group, Brian Cronin.
Sure.
I'm going to share my screen for everybody. Figure out, let's see, it's not the bald eagle. Bear with me, there it is. I'm going to share it here. And I'm just going to put it into our slideshow. From the beginning. And there we go. I can move these down a little bit too. So, Brian, the floor is all yours, sir.
Thank you. So, the Waterways Working Group looking at revenue is just to advise the Waterways Committee on financial matters related to the Waterways Enterprise Fund. So, and the reason why this came about is we've got a shortfall that starts in FY26, and it's identified as about $150,000 per year to cover. So, next slide. So I want to thank the working group members, Mike, Brian, Dave, John, and Dave for attending meetings and, giving some great input on kind of how we can, move forward, and just kind of brainstorm on different ideas. Next slide. So this slide is just, we put it in there for, just so we knew when the last increases were and what they were, on slips, moorings, and then the waterways usage fee. And yeah, so that's just sort of a slide to remind everybody where we're at. So the recommendations, we looked at a bunch of different things. And next slide. One of them was pay to park at the Jericho ramp. So we looked at what other towns were doing, what their rates were, how many spots that we had, and came up with a recommendation that we should look into an annual sticker for parking, an annual sticker for excuse me, car and trailer parking. Then there are 12 car spots in the Jericho parking lot where people car talk or launch kayaks, things like that from. And then an annual sticker for commercial boat haulers. And then a daily user ticketing app to charge per day for anybody who was a infrequent user of the ramp. How you do it, how it gets enforced, how exactly it's done, that's something that we spent a little time talking about, but we think we came to the conclusion that it could be done. And but there are obviously details to be ironed out. But it's something that it looks like that it could our estimate was about $43,000 per season. I don't know if we want to just run through the slides and then talk about it afterwards or at the end. And
Yeah, let's just run through the presentation and then we can sort of go back and sort of dig into it a little bit.
okay.
Thank you.
All right, next slide. So this is a revenue, and it also it addresses some issues at the town pier. So town pier, some additional fees. So the background is that the town pier, this business that's being conducted that is truck to truck. It's people who arrive by truck that sell fish to the fish buyer, and then people are lobstermen who arrive by truck buying bait from the bait truck. So it's not fair that the people unloading at the pier and tying up at the pier have to support the pier to have people come over the road. So this just addresses the commercial striper fishermen who are selling to the buyer on the pier, and then the lobstermen who are arriving by truck and buying bait from the bait truck. So we have a recommended fee of $125, and we were not really sure how many people were doing that, but I think we had a recommendation that would be in the $2,500 range. So you're getting some revenue, but you're also kind of cleaning up some activity that's happening on the pier that's not being regulated.
Which part of it's not being regulated? Of that.
Well, we're gonna take questions at the end.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure it. Fine.
No, we can.
We'll get there.
All right, next slide. So this is maximize revenue for the town using what we have as our essentially assets. That we want all slips leased, all the moorings assigned, all the dinghy docks leased, which I think Dave Sinkowski and Dave Dinning took care of that, along with Stephen and Mike. All boats paying the waterways user fee, so the boats on 10A floats, private piers, that the marine accounts are accurate, the private marine accounts are accurate. manage the number of municipal and other law enforcement, boats at the marina. Place smaller harbor master boats on inside slips so that we can, so that the larger outside slips can be, leased to maximize revenue. Maximize the amount of, transients that, are at the slips and moorings so that the marina patrons, which is, it's in their contract now that they should check in and check out at the beginning and end of seasons, that the marina patrons should inform the harbor master when the slip's gonna be empty, whether it's cruising or for a repair. And those are all things that I think the marina patrons need to be reminded of, on a yearly basis. And then use social media to promote the transient slips that we do have available, slips via DOCWA. Mike, do you wanna touch on the?
Yeah,
the
so
expenses?
when we started out on this thing, we were really looking at revenue. How do we close the gap on revenue of roughly 150,000? And really kind of anytime you're looking at a budget, whether it's business or a town or whatever, you gotta look at cost too, right? You gotta look at your revenue that's coming in and your cost, and then control both of them, right? So we could pull a whole bunch of levers on revenue if we need to, right? But you can't continue to do that year in, year out. It's just not sustainable long-term if your operational costs keep going up. So we thought, hey, we should at least put something in here to talk a little bit about expenses and what can possibly be done as a portion of this to kind of help close that $150,000 a year gap, right? So the first thing that was on there was really review staffing levels and hours of operation. This was something that was thought about just because now we have 2 police boats running in the town. We go back historically, we didn't have, I think probably 8 years ago, I don't really know, we didn't even have 1 boat going, right? Now we had 1 for a number of years, now we have 2 boats that are going, right? And we have the harbor master staff, so is there an opportunity there to look at the hours of operation, maybe how the shifts are staffed, right? Or possibly could you improve your service levels, even if you can't cut back on the costing, can you at least change the formula so that maybe you have people that are there at 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning, right? That are on boats, so when the fishermen are going out, or the recreational fishermen in the summertime, we've got some sort of coverage there where we kind of have I feel a little bit of a gap there, right? And maybe that pulls some of the people from later in the day or a different part of the day just by moving it around. So that was one kind of thought, or just something to look at, because things have changed. We don't always go back. We get in our comfort zones of how we do things, right? It just makes sense to kind of look at it and see if there's an opportunity to change or to cut back or change it somehow. Ensure proper insurance coverage, to make sure we're not overinsured. You know, that was one that Brian, you had put in there.
Yeah, just that insurance is a very large, line item, and just,
Yeah.
you know, to look at it and double check it.
Right.
I think on the insurance, I'll wait until the end. I have enough thought on the insurance for you guys.
Review the town's fleet across departments for surplus or equipment overlap, if there's, number of boats or equipment in general, is there opportunity there for cost savings? And then really, when you look at the expense budget, right, it's operational expenses, right? And they've increased since 2015. Just wanted to point out, since 2015 to 2025, it's about a 50% increase, so it's doubled over the 10-year period from $476,000 to $950,000. Now, there's been changes to how people are paid and a lot of things that we can't control. There's fixed costs, insurance, and other things that were certainly big changes in that, right? But at a rate of roughly 7% a year of increases in operational budget, it becomes a little bit unsustainable trying to continue to put 7% or more a year in increases in revenue every year. You think about compounded rates. Well, this is a perfect example of what happens over a period of years, right? You get to 50% pretty quickly, so. Obviously, the biggest item in that is really staffing. If you look at the operation cost, it's really the staffing levels, and I'm not sure how much can really be done there or not, but. Point of this is just to say, it can't be all revenue, probably should be a look at expenses and budgeting of expenses.
Thanks, Mike. So next slide. So the recommendation to, you know, this is the working group's recommendation to the waterways to discuss was implement pay park at the Jericho ramp. Add the truck permit as a town pier, maximize the slip leases, mooring assignments, waterways user fee billings and transient revenue. And then, it's just my outline, continue to effectively manage department's revenue, evolving the budget as there are changes to the department's mission, so.
Great.
And I want to again thank the group that helped out and came up with these ideas.
And I want to thank the group too for spending some time and going through that and really putting your heads together and really looking at some of the possibilities as we try to figure this out. I'll entertain some questions. Dave?
This isn't gonna be a popular comment at all, I know, but how are we at $100 a foot at the marina, offering a $3 million marina, when Doggers and Kenny's are $300 a foot? I mean, we don't get to golf at Widows Walk for $10 just because the town owns it. You know, I mean.
Yeah, good point.
I'm not saying we gotta get up to 300, but that's a pretty large revenue stream right there that is still paying, you know, 1990s prices.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I know,
I know one of the things that pertains to that is there's a correlation between Army Corps of Engineers funds and how much you can charge. So basically, you can't make a profit. You can
No, but I mean, we can close this gap a little bit.
Oh, I think so, yeah. Well,
Without being, you know, not cranking up to send everybody a letter that saying it's going for $300 a foot.
we had a
But
recommendation date in 2017 to raise the rates at the marinas. We'll just get it out. So I mean, that's long.
I don't know.
David.
I don't know when you, oh, sorry.
Oh.
Document from the Army Corps that restricts, there's other towns that, you know, we're not for a lot of profit, but we always put money into the retained earnings that you're trying to. And that would be considered profit. I don't know where the Army Corps restricts that.
I do, but I have a letter from the Army Corps to us. Going back a ways, explaining how that works out. I can dig that up.
That'd be great, because I know moorings you can't. Moorings you can only charge what it costs to administer the moorings.
Right, well, the same with the portion of the Hobart Marine that's in the federal Anchorage area. That
Yeah,
cannot be used to make an actual profit.
Yeah, that's not that, it's a pretty good area, but it's not that, you know, Maritime Center's not in that ring.
It's half the Hobart and
Not quite half.
runs right down the, I know because.
Okay, that's fine.
David?
Yeah, just to address Dave's comment, one of the things we started with on this working group was to address it's convenient to take a list that we already have and adjust to that list. What we found through our discussion was there are gaps in users and access to the waterways. So we wanted to address the gaps first, and discussion was had, just so you know, discussion was had on waterways, and there was a report done by a gentleman who reviewed everything and said, and gave recommendations. So one of the things we wanted to do was, let's clean up what's missing. And then the next step, as I saw it, and maybe you guys disagree with, but this is the way I saw it, then we'll go to the next thing about managing what we already have. So that was, it hasn't, just so you know, it didn't get missed. It's just.
No, I mean, it's the gorilla in the room, it can't get missed.
No, there's a cost of sale. You have a marina, you have two marinas, you have moorings. There's a cost associated with the sale of that. And what does it cost to provide the service? And it should be equally distributed.
Has anyone ever added up the amount of footage that's in the marina? You know what I'm saying? Like you've got a 40-foot boat, 30-foot boat, 30-foot boat, a 20-foot boat, 40-foot boat, like. Is
I think it was,
has been set
4,500
down?
At some point, we can, do those things, but it's always changed every year.
Oh, I know, just to get a, like a fairly.
We get it.
rough- Say, all right, we got
On average, about 25 feet.
1,000 feet of boat here. And
It's like 4,500 feet or something, if I
where
remember
do we
seeing
need to
something.
get to?
We actually did that at one point
We
several
did.
years ago, I just don't remember the numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying, at least give you somewhat of an idea, say, all right, if we go from 110 to 115,
Yeah,
that.
Right.
There's X amount.
yeah, we
Cost.
built the calculator.
We go to 117.
Exactly that.
You could almost just take
Work backwards instead of.
the slip fees and divide them by 110. And that would give you the footage.
Yeah,
Because
Roughly, yeah.
it's,
Some-
I'd
I
say
know it changes every year.
it's over,
It's
probably 90% is
figure, you
is
know.
town. Yeah, a large portion of residents.
Right, but as far as,
But that would give you that round number.
right, so now we say, all right, yeah, so we go up $5 a foot, that puts X amount back. We go up 10 bucks, whatever it's gonna be.
I think, and Brian Kelly has that information because we talked about in the same discussion, we talked about raising, the discussion was about raising the waterway user fee from 125 to 150. And my input was, let's address what's missing before we go to that, because they had a number, I forget what it was. Brian has it, and it was like, this is what it would, if we raised it $25, this is what it would mean in dollars.
Right.
Exactly.
Brian. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. Yeah, just seconding what the mayor was just saying, that we're trying to first focus on new revenue, or making sure we're maximizing every revenue source we have before we start pulling levers on the other fees. But to answer Dave's question, Dave, I always used about 6,500 feet on my financial calculations, but if you just take a 10% increase, so if we went from 110 to 121, you just take a look at the slip fees, and we average about 700 and change, low 710. So a 10% increase would give you about 70 grand, $70,000 to $75,000.
Thank you, Brian.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
So if you go back to the Jericho boat ramp,
Mhm.
it's my understanding, I could be wrong, but it's my understanding that any money that's derived from parking fees or fees derived out of there, you have to go to the state, get permission, and it has to be driven back into managing the facility. You can't just take it, put it in the enterprise fund and spend it on what you want to spend it on.
Can you dig
Yeah,
into
I
that
can.
and get that for us for next
Yeah.
month?
I actually have that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, so you can do a launch fee, which covers your waterways. We talked about this within our group, so. If I'm not on point, let me know, but yeah, there's a water, we pay a waterways maintenance fee, waterway user fee, whatever we want to call that. So there's that part of it. And then at the last meeting, we discussed the fact that if you collected, if you sold a year pass for $150 for the season, then X amount of dollars would go to waterway user fee and X amount would go to the lot. So you cannot.
For maintenance.
Right, so there's a way to break it down, so that the piling replaced on the docks would come out of that fund, which was a question I had, which that should come out of fishing and boating access. They'll reimburse for that expense.
Actually, they wouldn't, but I got that money through the CBA.
Right,
So
so
I did get a grant for it, but fishing and boating access
Yeah.
did not.
So it's 320 CMR 2.0 with public access facilities. I have the, agreement signed by the town for, land management agreement from 06, and it goes back to the sixties actually, which requires us to do certain things, but there's a way to break it down so that the funds raised from the water's edge out go to waterways for covering for harbor master services, emergency services, fire, police, whatever it was. And then the parking lot itself would get a percentage of that would be separately accounted for and managed. The problem is we don't have a management post. It's either police, DPW, or harbor master. So someone has to be the point for that.
I mean, I really have no authority in parking lots. It would have to be the police. It would issue citations.
Right, so I've reached out and haven't heard back yet from Officer Norton in regards to partnering up with the revenues raised. Right, they receive a certain portion out of our waterways funds for their operation. Well, my intent would be to have them help us recoup that. So.
That's fair, Asper.
That's fine with me.
Okay, it's a, they can stop there, they can dock, they can go through the parking lot before they go out to the river or go out to Cohasset or wherever they go, but there's a way to do it. I just haven't had that conversation.
No, I can't write tickets.
I can't, I just haven't had that conversation with Officer Norton, or Macaulay, or Keith or the chief to solidify that partnership, because it will not work if it's not enforced. So we have to have that partnership.
And you still have to, bring this to fishing boating access for their approval, their final approval.
The parking part of it, yes. Well, their part of it. But it's in their regulation and it's in their notes that this is the only one that I have found in Massachusetts that doesn't charge. So there must be a way to be compensated for the effort that's given.
Do we know how DeMayo does it in Marshfield?
It's, yes, his goes back in, but he doesn't have a waterways enterprise fund, so he operates out of taxpayer dollars and grants. But it's through the town. So.
And he's also through the police department, probably line.
Exactly, so they have a different situation,
Yeah.
as I understand it, for enforcement, which is their land and water from the one office, which we have two, so it's,
Yeah.
It's a $20 launch fee. Right?
Okay.
And you can get a launch sticker for your bumper of your car.
yeah.
I have a question about that.
So, I don't know if there's any other questions on any of that stuff, but. I have.
Did you figure out what it would cost for the person to release this? Just before, after the revenue?
Well, obviously through the discussion of our group, it was a partnership between us, or between Harbor Master Police Department, DPW. As the rates and the access to marinas has increased and gone and more difficult to find, then the public launch is the only option.
Right.
The other thing that we discussed is you've got one, what do you do about Cole Parkway and what do you do about the river? Okay, Cole Parkway, there's no trailer parking, so does that eliminate the parking part of it, but that doesn't eliminate the launch part of it? And it's in such disrepair down there, I'm not sure that anybody can get out of there with their axle on their trailer once they launch, but it's another access point, as is the river. And if I remember right, Frank Snow was included in some of this discussion about how they want to manage that part of it, because the lot is theirs, but again, waterway user fee is that passed on to the waterway users.
Yeah, John Murphy was talking, right?
Right, exactly.
So I think Cole Parkway, because there's no trailers, I think that's what it was, you know.
Yeah. It would, I mean, people could launch there, we're not gonna charge them a fee for launching, but there's really no place to put a trailer. I mean, you might get, if you're there early in the day. you
Not the
might-
most convenient place
Right,
maybe by design, maybe not, I
yeah,
don't know.
but honestly, I use it because I'll dunk in a small.
Right,
trailer
yeah,
there,
exactly.
And then the kids take the boat, I just take the trailer home.
Yeah.
What we discussed was, do we know exactly how many people wouldn't go to Jericho and go somewhere else based on the charge? I don't
Yeah.
know, I don't
Right.
know.
Well, a typical scenario at Jericho Road is by 8 o'clock in the morning, we would probably get 20 out of state people parking. So I mean, the number of, what do you have, 170 stickers? That could be tough.
Well, it's not all at once, it's like, we talked about it as is. I don't wanna speak over the chairman here, but we treated it like a beach sticker. There's 500 beach stickers sold, it's not 500 parking spots, but there's a portion thereof.
Mhm.
If you have a sticker, then you can park, but that's up to you to figure out how that works, so.
Right.
So in discussion with other towns on how they do it, including Marshfield, they went to a 3-to-1. They went to, so for every parking space, they sold 3 tickets. And that was pretty much throughout all of the towns as an average. Some were 4, not many were less, so.
And maybe in the first year you sell 2-to-1, you know, to see how it goes.
Yeah.
Go to all these subscribers.
It's not a guaranteed spot, it just allows you access.
Right.
To that part.
You
Yeah.
not have to pay every day.
Right.
That you use it.
Brad,
Brad White for Brian, for the Bryans. Where does the proposed revenue of $50,000, where does that go? Does it go back into the harbor, hopefully? It doesn't go to pay a pothole, right?
Hopefully it goes into the enterprise fund, but whether we have to share some with the police, if, you know, for their involvement of policing the parking lot and writing citations, or to,
Right.
or to, the DPW for maintenance.
But the source and use of funds will keep it somewhere in the waterway, right? Not the town budget.
That was our.
the goal,
Yeah,
it's always the goal.
that's where we're staying. It would
Okay.
somehow management of either the lot itself or the lot itself, and, you know, like David pointed out, that you can use it as part of the waterway user fee. I mean, everything still has to go to the state, and they still have to.
Did they do the lights over yet?
The lights are working, and their plan is to redo that whole parking lot. I believe they're gonna pave and they're gonna put new lanterns up, but the town took over the lights. So we were renting them, Eversource or the National Grid, and they were maintaining them, and I went down and, Rick from DPW was down there and working on a light, and I said, why are you changing the bulb? We rent those, and he said, no, the town took them over. So the town now is, DPW manages all the lights in town, all the street lights and all park.
And when will the lot be redone, Stephen, do you know?
I don't know, they're working on it.
This year, next year?
It could be 3 years. The engineers were out 2 years ago,
Yeah.
but it's this come off.
The lights are important because it gets real dark there.
Oh, the lights have been repaired.
Yep. Yeah, we talked about that, so I know he'd work to make sure.
Those big
they're back up.
parking lot lights that are up on the telephone poles.
Yep.
They've been, repaired.
Any security there?
There is one camera that is a port security camera that looks down the ramp and a little bit off to the sides.
And that reports into you or the police department?
Close to, me and the police, but eventually it will just the police.
It's what?
Eventually it'll probably go just to the police.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Brian Cronin. One, well done, with the group,
Can I-
thank you.
Can I ask one more question?
Absolutely,
On the town pier, they were talking about, fees
yes,
for commercial truck access.
Yep.
Today for commercial truck access, we charge $350 per truck. And $400 for an out-of-town vehicle. I do go down there and I do administer and I do, stop people, and I've asked people in the past to leave that, simply refuse. But normally we just send them an invoice and they pay it, and then each year they'll pay it. Short of me sitting down there, every day, all day, all night, I'm sure there are some people that, make it through without getting charged. But if you come there and you're doing business out of a truck, we charge you.
That's already
It
happened.
doesn't matter whether it's going from this truck to that truck or from this boat to that truck. There's a load unload fee that you pay. The oil trucks pay it, the fish trucks pay it. The fish markets pay it.
So you know a lot of these vendors that are doing that type of work on the dock. Do
Because
you,
I'm
no,
down there. Do I know them personally?
no, you know the vendors, who they are.
Yeah, we keep them in our,
Do you,
mooring info system, and we send them an invoice each year.
you require any insurance to be able to operate on the pier?
No.
Is that something that we should be looking at in case something bad happens? I'm throwing out crazy questions right now.
We can get more insurance. You guys are trying to cut the budget, not add to it.
I'm not talking for us, I'm talking about for them coming on the property and just,
Yeah.
being a former aviation guy, it's all about insurance too, so just thinking about that. David,
So just a little bit more on what you spoke about. The gap that we talked about wasn't the fuel truck, wasn't the bait truck, wasn't the fish buyer. What's happened is that's become a place for transfer of product. So during commercial striper season, we have fishermen from all over, from Boston to the Cape, that come to sell their product to Mulaney's.
Mhm.
And they're on the pier with their truck and their boat, okay? And it's a few days, it's 3 days a week, or it was last year, 3 days a week, until the quota is met. So that is exactly where the transfer of product should be. It shouldn't be on a side road, it shouldn't be down the dump, it shouldn't be in Cole Parkway, it should be on the pier. Those people that are accessing our facility, dumping their coolers with their ice on it, washing out their trucks, are not paying.
If I see somebody down there and they pull up and a boat's there, I charge them a low unload fee for the boat and a truck access fee. So if it's coming off of a fishing boat and going
That's
in,
not what I just said. If it goes from a pickup truck with a 22-foot center console on the pier with a cooler to Mulaney's, is that guy being charged? Is there, I don't see it in the,
I don't understand. What do you mean a 20? You mean having the boat on the pier
guy
itself?
fishes out of Hingham.
Yeah.
He sells his stripers to Mulaney's.
How does he get them from his boat? Does he use the winches? Does he pull up the?
Drives onto the pier with his truck and his boat and his trailer. Okay? He takes-
I've not seen people driving with their trailer out there. I just haven't seen it. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen, David. I just haven't seen it.
I'm not looking. I'm trying to bring a gap to your attention
Okay.
that we've talked about before. I don't want to argue about it. I don't want to get into a dissertation whether it happens or it doesn't. I'm telling you what happens.
Okay, that's
I'm
fine.
explaining to you why it happens, and we'd like to be able to close the gap. I don't think that Dave Haley and I should pay to use the pier, and these people get free access to it. And I'm just talking about me. And I'm not trying to drag Dave into it. I'm just saying, as a commercial entity in the harbor. Okay, it's a gap that needs to be taken care of. That's one part of it. It's for a short time of the year, or it could be all summer, but it happens and it needs to be addressed. Okay, and that was through the discussion. I may have brought it to the discussion, but we all vetted it all out. When the guy shows up from Plimpton with his boat and his truck, and he drives onto the pier and he buys bait from Harris, and he doesn't pay. That's, to me, that's a problem.
Okay.
Not only does that individual or others launch their boat at Jericho Boat Ramp, which commercial access is not allowed without permission from Dave Cameron, okay? So it needs to be addressed, and it needs, And it needs to be addressed for a number of reasons, one for revenue, one for cleanup. We as lobstermen, and I'll speak for me and you tell me if I should speak for you, we are tired of guys coming to the pier, dumping the bait out of the barrels into the boxes, taking their bait with them, and I have to walk through that puddle of shit before I get on my boat. They don't clean it up, okay? It's a problem. We've talked about it. We need to address it. And the only way to address it is a financial involvement in that. That's part of what this is. It's a small part of what we talked about, but it's a problem that needs to be addressed, okay? A lobster boat is not the most glamorous thing, but I don't need to go down a ladder with bait juice on my hands and on my boots and in my boat when I keep my boat clean. It's a housekeeping thing, but it's also about keeping people, making them, you know, not compliant, but be respectful of our resources. They use our hoses, they're using our winch, they're moving bait from boat to truck or whatever it is. They should be part of it, you know? And I and others have worked hard about making sure that we compile a list of fuel users that go to the pier, and that we make sure that they're part of paying into the $10,000 worth of pilings that we use. It's a part of it. So that was the discussion. It's not what you don't do. Please don't take it that way. It's what needs to be done, what we see needs to be done a little bit further down the road. And there's a way to do it.
So
There's a revenue source.
with that said, excellent discussion. What's next for the committee? You've put together a really great opportunity here, some recommendations.
So I think, probably if everybody takes it away, thinks about it, and we can come back, next month and, see if we want to make any recommendations that, I think unfortunately, we just finished the presentation today. It didn't get it out to everybody.
Okay.
But I'll send it out after the meeting and, but I think that it's, if everybody kind of looks at it, thinks about it, then we can, come up with a recommendation. If we want to come up with any recommendations to propose to the,
We can probably
board.
piece it out, you know,
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, absolutely, yeah, be broken out.
different funds and then
Howie.
talk about it again with
I-
each grouping and then decide if people want to take a motion or actions on
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Go ahead.
I'd
Howard.
really like to thank the subcommittee for all this work that they've done and pointing out some potential opportunities here, some low hanging fruit potentially that we could capitalize on. The parking at Jericho, what are we talking, $40,000 to $50,000 potentially? Okay, we've got details to work out. That's what the next phase would be, I would guess, but I'd like to thank everybody that was involved with this. I think this is great work. And now we have to flesh out the details.
Great work. I'm wondering whether or not maybe we should put together a survey monkey. And have everybody sort of look at some of we've got the recommendations here and sort of get some feedback from everybody before our meeting. I don't know whether or not there's an interest in doing this, some type of a survey.
Survey monkey to us.
Survey monkey to the commission members on what's been presented and what makes sense.
These are public meetings so that everyone can know who's responding and what their position is on this stuff, so I think if you do it as a survey monkey, it kind of flies outside of
Okay,
the hoop of, you know, public meeting, right, so. I just think that a better way to do it perhaps is to break it down into pieces, right, and then a next meeting, after everyone's got a chance to kind of digest it a little bit and maybe go home and think about it over the next month about the fees and what they think the fees are, then we come back, maybe we make recommendations to do certain things and then what the fee should be, and if we want to make a motion to vote on that or not, so.
I do really like the idea of how you've gone and really tried to find the gaps. I think it really makes good sense and just being responsible, fiscally responsible for what we're trying to accomplish. Yes, sir.
Dave Doffrey, 356 Clap Road. So I guess through our working group, what can, we presented a few things. This is, you know, and we talked about keeping this group somewhat together so that we can continue on, because there's other things that we can look at, there's other things that we can do. We're trying to, as I saw it, try to, you know, the dinghy dock was a big thing, and my understanding was like in excess of $7,000 was raised in a short amount of time. We've got that problem, that situation eliminated, and now it's access to it's worked well, and where do we go from here? So I would suggest through Brian that we take, you know, are we gonna be able to institute a parking charge this year? I don't know, but I think the town pier thing can be addressed real quick. And I think there's some other things in this, so maybe, I don't know, maybe we need to just go through it and maybe do a priority thing with the input from the harbor master. What does he think we can do this year versus this coming year versus what's down the road? And then we need to revisit some, you know, the other things that we spoke about that were a little bit more tough to tackle at the time.
I like that,
You know, and I think, you know, initially when we got to that group, it was my thought anyways, and I think I explained it, that there's $100,000 worth of revenue that we can receive here. That's a little bit here and a little bit there, all makes it work.
So I'm sorry, it's David, is your recommendation back to Brian Cronin that this group should come up with a subset and come back to the waterways? Because I would dearly love to see this move forward. I mean, this example on the parking, we've been discussing for 3 years, maybe 4.
I just don't, you know, I think we should, my opinion is we should go through it and find out what's immediate, what's intermediate, and what's next year. But I think we're on a good path, and I feel good about the effort and the time that we spent. It's just implementing all of this. You can't do it all in one time, so, you know, the impossible takes a little bit longer to take care of. And I've been a part of that, so I'm open to anything on my part, but it's up to Brian and the rest of the committee.
Good point.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach, but and Dave, to Sinkowski, to your point, I think let's put together a recommendation for if we do want to move forward with Jericho parking. I think we can, you know, take a month, put that forward. That's not something that's going to happen this summer.
Right.
That's
And I think it could, but it's, and again, we need to get those people involved, you know, we gotta grab, it's not us, it's not.
Right.
Harbor Master Moan, it's not just, it's no different really that I see it from the boatyard. Shared property, it's shared management, it's shared responsibility, this is the same thing, and it should be done, and it should be done right. So, I believe strongly, if it took to next year to implement and we did it right, I'm okay with that.
yeah. It's my opinion that if we did it for this season, it would be very rushed, and I don't think it will be done right.
Right.
I would say something like that. There's a lot of stakeholders need to get buy-in
Exactly.
from.
Yeah.
And that would be something that we'd want to kind of be methodical in setting it. So I think we should go back, you know, I think the waterways people should just take these slides in, absorb them, come up with their recommendations. We can have a waterways, a working group meeting and come up with some recommendations, and something to propose, for the May meeting. Meet while we paint the bottoms of our boats, wax them.
I'll be done by then.
No, if it wasn't, with the weather, it doesn't get any better. My goodness.
It's
So,
only 2 times.
so I guess we'll do 2 things. I'll get the slides out tomorrow,
Yep.
to the Waterways Committee, and we'll set up a meeting, of the working group. Stephen, do you want to be involved in that?
No.
Bring it to me. No.
Should at some point, the working group also start reaching out with Stephen and the police and set up a meeting with police and maybe DPW, just to sort of start the conversation to see whether or not where everybody wants to be.
I've asked to as part of this working group, I've asked to speak with Officer Norton.
Yep.
Because Macaulay was out, I
Yes.
believe, at the time,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah,
and we
he
just
is.
haven't made that connection, so.
Okay.
As far as the working group goes, I'm okay with touching base with them on their part of it, or what their expectations might be, and also DPW with what their expectations or what their oversight would be, so it's.
It's great. Thank you, Dave.
It should all fall in line, I would think, but
What happens if they come back and say, all right, you're gonna raise 29 grand from charging the park, and they say, well, it's gonna cost 30 grand to police, so we're gonna have to have.
but we're already paying,
Down here at 4 in the morning, and
we're already paying them 60 grand, so I'm looking for a little bit back.
You know what, I think this group, it's our job to propose what we think is correct, and then if we've already heard already from the police that there's a manpower issue, that's outside our perimeter. We propose what's correct, and then it's up to the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator to work out with the police how it will or won't be done. But I don't think we should ever steer from a subject because, well, I don't know if they have the manpower.
I agree with that, and I agree with Dave, how we really need to get those questions answered so that the group can make a good decision. So, keep going. Really, it took some time. Does anybody else have any other questions on this? Then I want to say thank you again to the working group for a lot of really good work.
I would just say Brian was a good ringleader on this one, and
Yeah.
pulled everyone.
No matter where he was parked or what he was doing.
Yeah.
A little scary when he goes to a black screen and you know he's not where he's supposed to be, but that's all right. I might have my day.
Well,
Busy
It's-
times.
it's a very important, it's very important for us to try to close these gaps, and I know that we really appreciate all the efforts that you guys are doing, so thanks so much. It took a little bit of time, but I thought it was a really important discussion to have. And getting everybody involved is where we need to be. So, thank you. We've just got some old business to get through. I reached out to the town administrator today on just how things are going with the Maritime parking lot. I said the weather slowed us down, but DPW should be making repairs shortly to get ready for the opening of the Maritime Center. Once the boats are back in the water, Jeff will shoot the grades and design a drainage plan. I asked him about the money. He said money sources will depend on estimated cost of the project. So he didn't really have too much to say on that, but they're still working towards doing some repairs that are not going to be short term. So we'll see how that goes.
So, Dave Downey, 356 Black Road, just on that same subject, because I was involved in that this summer.
Yep. Yes.
I went to a few rain events that we happen to have, scarce as they may be. And water coming off of First Cliff goes right into the boatyard. So,
Oh.
there's a drainage issue at the boatyard, but there's also, it comes off the cliff and it goes right in by the Mossing Museum, Mossing Shed and the pump station. And it flows right in. You can see the debris that goes in there from the cliff. So it's not only an exit issue, it's an entrance issue. And not that I'm a DPW guy or anybody, but it should be something that's discussed publicly and maybe they can look at that. Because it's not going to the catch basins as designed.
And it probably can't handle it when you're getting 2 or 3 inches of rain. Howie, anything else to add on the parking lot over there?
No, I think what we know, talking with Phil Johnson, who's working with the town engineer, when the boats get moved there, they're gonna be able to shoot the grade so they can determine where the water needs to go. One thing that they're sure of, water runs downhill. They're pretty sure of that. It doesn't go up the cliff. So there are no catch basins. There are no catch basins on Edward Foster Road. So they've already taken that into consideration and possible berm. So they know they have drainage issues that they have to address. But right now they're in a hold pattern until a lot of those boats are removed, launched, and they can shoot the grade properly.
Great.
Question?
Yes, sir.
Brad Whittle, Main Street. So I've been working down there for the last couple of weeks on my boat.
Yep.
There is always at least 2 to 3 inches of standing water So when you drive in, at least 2 car lengths to the right-hand side, that's where all of the water is collected. So Howie, if they do a crown of some sort, that is going to become an insect infested area when the weather warms up. Because it's a lot of standing water. So I've never seen it like this. It's really bad this year. And my comment is that whoever studies what, most of that standing water is on the right-hand side.
Yeah, what they know, Brad, is that in the last 10 years, a property is sinking due to the fact that it's on a peat bog. So we're aware of that, and it's now manifested itself into what you just described. So we need to re-pitch it. We need to get the drainage properly. And lastly, and I've said this before, we have, whatever we put on top, we want to make it aesthetically pleasing and not just another sand pit that we've experienced in the past.
They experimented, Howie, with they cut into that entrance way, a trench to move that water from, I guess, south to north. And that lasted about a week and a half. So
Well,
anyway, it's,
they cut the trench and they didn't put any type of material in it to help support it, like
Right.
heavy crushed stone or something.
it just filled itself back
Of course.
in again. So
Well, they're
anyway,
not-
it's very difficult to service your boat with 2 or 3 inches of water. And it's not a complaint, but it's a concern because I'll be out of there next week,
But yeah, okay. So that's continuing. Harbor Wi-Fi. A group of us met on the 27th of March. Mike Gibbons, Mike Mancello, Howie, myself, and Brian's been sort of circling. Oh, and Stephen, thank you. I'm sorry about that, Stephen. What we did is we went back and looked at the background of the Wi-Fi. We got some really good information about what's happened, what's happening around the harbor with AT&T and Verizon. Looking at a general agreement, general direction of the project, financial, how it's going to be paid for. Some of the options were to hire a design firm for the proposals, find a company that can manage the project as a whole. Should we do one of the questions was, should we do a survey with our patrons and see what they want? Should we complete a cost benefit study? The other question was, one of the proposals, does AYACT have a help desk? And they do. So they can do everything there. AYACT, who has been recommended by the town, and Mike Mancello, does a lot of work around the town. They've got multiple projects going on here right now. And
I think they're on the state vendor list as well.
they are on the state vendor list as well, and they can do the whole type of project as well that we've been looking at. So I'm not sure what's next on the hit parade for that. Any thoughts there, Mike?
My thoughts is that we need to kind of set some parameters up to say, this is what our expectation is for what we need for, dB and signal to noise ratio, signal strength at different points of the marina on the outside furthest away, and say, this is what we expect and want, and and put it in an RFP out to various companies so that they design to that criteria and that they guarantee those types of performance levels. I'm not a big fan of having a whole bunch of masts around the marina that have electronics down there on the water. I just don't think it might work great for, I think it'd work great for a year or two, and I think it's just problematic to have that stuff down on the docks, right? It's a terrible environment for that type of stuff, even if you use hardened electronics, and sealed beam enclosure is just not a great way to do it. I prefer to have the electronics and all that stuff in the building, and then fed from either the light posts that are up there or the bandstand, and several different land-based options to do that. That's my own thing. My last thought on this was, AYACT's great. I've looked at the website and they're fine, but I just want to remind people they did the last system for the town, which was, I think, 2013, and it never really worked from day one.
Okay. I knew it didn't, when I got here in 15, it was kind of end on.
It was brand new. It was 2013. Like you could barely download an email from Marina. I mean,
Has the equipment improved? They had everything approved so far.
Yeah, there's all kinds of different ways you can do it with panel heads and other stuff that I think, I'll
They just not
say
looking at it.
Brian, I don't know if we get in the spot, but I know you talked to one of the wireless engineers at MIT.
Yeah, echo what you said about, not wanting electronics on a floating dock, and, that I talked to the wireless antenna the guy who does all of our designs, and I showed him the map of the marinas, both marinas in the town pier, and he thought it could be done. He put it into his design tool and did a few calculations, and he said it could be done with panel antennas to get the right signal strength on the outside of the marina, and that, he thought that was a good design.
I know, Mike Monticello was concerned that if there was antennas in the dock and they weren't fed with fiber, the only conduits that are there are gonna have power in them. That's correct.
Yeah.
And you can't have you can have fiber in those conduits, but you can't have.
You can have non-conductive, so you can have fiber, but you cannot
Can't
put
have copper.
copper cables in with the copper cables again, so.
Yeah, I think that we were talking about having antennas on the bandstand and on light poles.
Yeah, so I was just,
On the park, sure, yeah,
his issue with it, with more issues than just
I hear you,
not holding up very well.
so.
So we basically sort of decided that we really just want to try to focus right now on the two marinas, the commercial pier, and hopefully get down to the lobstermen. And really focus on those, and we need to decide as a group on do we move forward with putting together an RFP and going back out? Or do we go with AOT, who's already working in town, even though a couple of us are not overly happy with, I guess, the past work.
I would say you give them to say, hey, look, can you do it with panel antennas, this specification, this, with a 6E, Wi-Fi 6E, you want neg 65 on the outside of the marina, you want a panel antennas, they just, and say, hey, what, is this something you can design to? Yeah, and if they say yes, and then, they'll probably have questions back to us, and then, this, that, and the other thing, and they probably will need to look at the site to see if there's enough.
Has anybody looked at, I know I sent it to you. Were they looking at panel antennas? On there,
I didn't see that in the.
I just, I don't know what I'm looking at, because I just,
What I saw was what they were proposing, like that they could do it and what the pricing was, but I didn't see anything really specifically on the equipment they were. using,
So-
what type of antennas, so.
Can we get a point person to sort of at least ask those questions for AOT? It's a little bit over my head, but is there somebody that can sort of?
pretty far over.
Yeah, Mike, do you wanna?
Way, if it's over your head, it's way over mine.
Do you wanna do that?
Yeah,
I'm willing to work with you.
I'll work with
I
you.
use Starlink on the phone now, it's just like, you gotta report the stuff, you
Yeah.
gotta be.
And that's our
Yeah.
goal, to be able to, make sure that you guys have the tools you need
Right.
to run your
It
businesses.
changes every month.
Fran,
Frank McMillan, 79 Cole Parkway. Am I to understand then that we're not putting Wi-Fi in the harbor, we're only doing the marinas?
Just the marinas.
to start off, yes,
That's a big factor. We'll get 2,000 to 3,000 boats coming in every year. And we have no Wi-Fi in the harbor.
right.
They can turn around and go back, so they're not.
I think it's gonna be sort of like our gap project that we're working on for,
Why are we doing what you can't do, Mike?
What other harbor has Wi-Fi? What other harbor the same size as Scituate has Wi-Fi in the harbor?
I'm only told, I haven't gone.
Okay, I think that's,
How about Marshfield? How about,
I don't, how many transient boats does Marshfield get?
I'm not talking about transient boats at this point, I'm saying, are we looking at having Wi-Fi in the harbor? Or are we just taking care of the marines?
Marinas.
I think for
Yeah,
now,
so-
go ahead, Mike.
So I know we all thought originally that we had Munchin that had said, hey, we can provide it to the whole basin. But we've talked to several different wireless design companies, right, to do this stuff. And they said, no. Did it's just, Wi-Fi just cannot go that far out and get that far unless you're gonna put antennas out there. They said you get too many things that block the signal, deflect the signal in different directions. They said.
Can we rent
You
out
will-
mooring buoys?
Exactly.
Can
So
we have
they said,
receptive
they said
antennas?
you will have boats that are just off of the marinas that will pick up the signal, and they might have enough signal strength to be able to do stuff. But they said, there's no company out there that really can give you
Okay, I'm just asking.
Wi-Fi, like now 5G, like, so what the carriers are
Cellular.
pushing with cellular.
Yeah.
Is, so Mike Mitchell, I don't know if you were there at that meeting, but he was just telling us they just lit up some new 5G antennas in town.
Yeah, Verizon, and then AT&T is trying to put some,
I'm not trying to beat a dead horse. All I'm doing, I need to know because people ask me on a weekly basis.
Yeah,
I'm coming to Scituate. Yeah, Wi-Fi, don't you?
yeah.
I get the answer. I'm not gonna tell them. have it.
I've actually called a whole bunch of different,
You know,
I've called a bunch of different places, including Newburyport, because I was up there last summer, and I was wondering what they did, and they said, no, they said, we don't have Wi-Fi.
Brad, you have the mooring fields.
May I tag on what you're saying, Brad White on Main Street? I agree 100% with Fred. This needs to be designed, in my opinion, to the user of the harbor. We probably have 900 moorings. Hang on, let me just say it, Brian.
Yeah.
We probably have 900 moorings, all right? It costs money to do this. How many moorings? 800, whatever the number is. Is it more than slips? Are there more moorings than slips?
there probably are more slips.
Okay.
Because the marinas is about 400 or so moorings in the harbor.
So the way the technology is working over the Situate Yacht Club is that little router that was set up by 3 guys in a truck punches out to probably, I'm gonna say, 1/10 of a mile off the docks. Because you can pick it up if you're on one of those moorings there. My recommendation would be, again, the consumer is the one that is coming to this harbor. If it costs money, there's money that's coming in, new money coming in, charge them more of a tariff. I'd be happy to pay $5 or $10, or whatever it is, times that many mooring holders, to put a new system in with infrastructure to do so. They do it in Iraq, they do it in Iran, they have it. So my suggestion is it'll be some type of an antenna on the NOAA building, on the first cliff where that other post is, the guy's charging $900 a year. Over on the lighthouse area, and then over on the town pier, you've got 4 that are pointing in towards the harbor.
Just what, okay, and that's a great idea, and that's what Munchin had proposed. Nobody else will take the on that. Nobody else wants to do it, in the harbor master's office does not want to be a help desk for people coming in, having trouble connecting to Wi-Fi, once you're back, but they don't also don't want to be a service provider, I don't blame them. But nobody else, there's no companies out there that will do what Munchin said, that was their design, having it at the yacht club, having it at the pier. Nobody, having them at NOAA. Nobody else wanted to take that on. And we looked and we can't find
We
anybody
thought it was a
else.
great
Yeah,
idea.
we
We
did.
were like, this is awesome.
Yeah, but it's,
Until you talk to wireless people.
This how we have,
You
this
could
how
put-
we have internet, we can maybe boost onto his, if he could just give us the code.
I bet it's a good problem.
They said you could actually put a floating
Floating mooring, something
Yeah.
out there.
out there to grab the signal and repeat it
Yeah.
out, right? But we don't want to have, that. That's what.
Well, I would imagine that
I-
MIT in Boston, somebody can give them a problem statement, somebody can figure it out. Because if they can do it during war zones, they can do it in Central Harbor.
you can do anything, but I'm sure you're not gonna wanna pay for it. You're not gonna wanna pay the price.
I
that's
would.
gonna- You're not gonna wanna pay the price that it's gonna cost. It's because, that's like, could be thousands of dollars.
But why do you think why would somebody think
Okay,
it's free?
hey, hang on for a second. I want to hear what Brian Kelly has to say, please. Because we're not making any headway here.
It's a 5-year project.
So just a quick question. In any of the conversations with these people, do we ever get an estimate for what the annual charges would be? And I'm not talking about from them managing the network instead on the backhaul side.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, Mike Monicello thought it was gonna be a total of,
Comcast.
it was 20,000 over the 3 years for the $55,000 for the one company, and then another 20,000 per year for the Wi-Fi itself.
I think what he's asking about Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, you're asking about what the backhaul charges are back to the internet, right?
Like 25 a year, you know what he said?
I believe what they said is they just needed a Comcast high speed.
The Beacon did.
What was Mike
Yeah,
talking
Beacon
about?
did,
It
right?
was
Yeah.
20 and 20.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what that was about.
Howie was,
I
Howie was on the call.
I wasn't at your last meeting.
Why?
So, yeah, my question really is it 1 gig? Is it 10 gig?
Yeah.
Business services
How
backhaul?
is cellular from turning Wi-Fi into the 8-track tape, right? I mean, we're at 5G right now.
Yeah,
They can be 10G by hots.
yeah.
Is that carrying, is the same amount of bandwidth as Wi-Fi?
So it's not so much bandwidth. What happens with 5G is that the higher you go up, without getting into a dissertation here, the higher you go up in those frequency ranges, they don't travel as far. So you need to have more equipment and
Yeah.
more equipment and more attendants and more spots to do it. Right now, there's, it wasn't that great last year, but the 5G was getting better down the harbor last year, and that's
I
pretty
don't
good.
have an issue with that. All my electronics on the boat are self-aware and they update and all this other stuff. My charts are brand new all the time,
Yeah.
which I believe I might pick up some of it off the Middle Wharf.
Mhm.
But even when I'm out fishing, I don't. I mean, cellular seems fine out in the middle, especially out in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing to stop that signal. I mean, I don't know. It seems like they're kind of deep dive into something that, technology's gonna overpass here pretty quick.
Can we look to the Starlink?
Let's get back to Brian again. I'm sorry, guys. Brian was on another thought. Go ahead, please, Brian.
No, so the question I really had is in dealing with something like this, there's two stages of this, obviously. It's the upfront cost to design this network, and whether or not we're talking about MNDS, 802.11, 5G, the cost infrastructure is going to be significant. The further and the denser that you make this. And to try to compare a 5G cellular phone conversation is nothing like what we're really talking about in terms of people wanting to download Netflix or whatever they're doing on their boat. And as Mike Gibbons already said, there's a lot of issues with 5G in terms of just simple the penetration on low E glass. It doesn't do it. So 5G really isn't an answer for us today. Instead, it's going to be one of the traditional Wi-Fi, whether they're using, as I said, MMDS or an 802.11 type of service. And again, we're going to run into the fact that there's going to be a lot of limitations on how far out and how robust it will be in terms of supporting multiple users, because the user base is not going to be something that's going to be spread out over 24 hours. Instead, they're going to be pounding it over a certain number, a fractional amount of the day. At least that's my opinion. But that being said, so there's the upfront cost, which could be something that's really manageable if we're talking about the marinas, to something that's grossly expensive if we try to do the entire harbor. I'm not saying we shouldn't look at it. I'm just warning people ahead of time. That is going to happen from someone who is in the service provider business. The second thing is the annual backhaul costs would probably kill us on this thing. And we need to understand this as we move forward. It's not as simple as saying we're going to have a 1G backhaul from Comcast, because I don't think that would support the user community in terms of latency and pixelization that they would experience as everybody was pounding the network again in a set amount of time. I think we'd be looking at a minimum of 10G, if not multiple, as well as potential redundancy. So I'd really be interested to understand if we've gotten any type of ideas as opposed to a back of a matchbook in terms of what the annualized backhaul would be, because it could be something really significant. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Hey, Brian, we did talk to Mike Mancello about that in Beacon when we had our first meeting, which was that about a month ago?
Yep.
And Beacon had told us, and they probably had the highest end design. They had, posts all over the marina with access points everywhere. And they said that it was minimal, what was required from a internet charge, you know, one connection from Comcast over at the Marine Park and one at the Harbor Master's office.
Wow. Okay,
So I'm just going by what they had said, but, yeah.
So, I want to thank, Mike and Brian for digging into this a little bit more, getting us some better information. It's a big enough issue where, again, another one that we can't really rush. So, thank you guys. You know, hopefully we'll have some better information next month. I know it's been a long meeting. We'll get this thing wrapped up fairly quickly. Let's see, Mike DeMayo. I added him on the old business. Mike was gonna be here, a little bit wrapped up.
I can
Mike
tell you what he was talking
and
about.
Stephen. Yes,
So Mike was gonna come in and talk about the grant we had applied for.
Yep.
And we went back to Seaport. He spoke to Ellen and they probably will not be approving that grant either.
they will not, yes.
So he did speak to Pat Kearney.
Yep.
And Pat's going to, put it in the budget
Yep, as an earmark,
as an earmark.
yep. For the South River permitting.
I think you're gonna see over time, a lot of the Seaport stuff going away.
All earmarks are cut down 50% right now.
I mean, a year ago.
Not surprising.
When I went in to get money, they gave away $10 million. The last time I went in, they gave away 1.7.
Well, Lauren really cut everything.
Yep, she has,
She smile and have fun, she cut it.
Yeah.
Unless.
The money's gone.
Well, I think what they're freaking out about right now is the incoming tax revenue right now is way down projections and.
They forgot to account that the millionaires tax, those millionaires weren't stupid.
Yeah.
They just moved it.
Yeah,
They just moved away.
so it's way off, so they're cutting everything back.
But yeah,
So, they're gonna, Stephen and Mike are working with our legislative team to try to earmark some money for that permit and see if that helps out. So, looks like 200,000 FY 2025, 200,000 for FY 26. He and Stephen will keep us advised on that. Clam flats are going well. We're planning, a shellfish relay for June, July, similar to last year. And finally, Briggs Harbor. Oyster farmers are back out there. We may have our first harvest this September. So that's very, very exciting.
they're growing like crazy.
Growing like crazy. So that's, just some updates from, Mike.
I can add a little bit to the shellfish, and I don't think I heard you say it, but I've been with Mike testing, Dave Doffney, 356 Flat Road. We've been, expanding the water testing in the South River to open up a whole nother section that will, hopefully next year take, Cohog Relay. So, it'll be from where it stops now on Central Ave was the boatyard, towards the bridgeway on the Humrock side, so.
Good news.
Got a really neat person that we've been working with that's really aggressive and really wants to help us make it better.
That's good news. Thank you.
She's the state.
Let's try to get through these and get everybody out of here. I know it's been a long meeting. How, anything, up on Pier 44?
No, the engineers continue to do their work and that's all that can be said at this point.
Yep, they just recently closed the public comment period for the environmental monitor that was published March 8th. They're hoping to get the MIPA secretary certificate on April 8th. Submit a site plan in April of this month, a site plan review to the planning board. Next month, they'll get an NOI to the Conservation Commission, so they're really working hard to try to keep that project going. Economic Development Commission, they haven't had too much going on. Howie's been keeping up with Sue, making sure that there's nothing very interesting happening there. Mike Gibbons on the Cole Parkway redevelopment. They are in still sort of study mode since they did all their testing.
Yeah, we haven't had a meeting in a bit, so I think we have one at the end of April, so this is our next meeting, so maybe I'll have some updates there. We haven't had one in a couple of months though.
And thank you, Mike. Shellfish, we talked with that, and unless Susan, I think she's gone, but I didn't hear anything from her, so we're good. I don't see there's any new business unless anybody has anything. Police department is not around. I was told that, the, harbor unit is now gonna be, run, by Officer Norton for the foreseeable future while Brendan is, trying to recover. Dave, anything interesting, on your neck of the woods?
No, just, slogging through this closure here,
Yeah.
another month to go, so.
Another month.
Well, they opened, that's not true, they opened up the wedge, which is an area of federal waters from 3 miles out from 4212, which is the mouth of the harbor, east, so go 3 miles out to, I believe it's 7030 north. So yeah, basically, federal waters outside of Scituate just opened up 2 weeks ago now, I think. So guys have started setting gear,
Oh, good.
early, so it's good for the federal guys.
Yep.
The state guys will still have to wait till May 15th at the latest. Last year they opened it up a few days early, so we're just waiting. I went on a whale survey.
Tagging whales.
Yeah, I was in Wales with, Stephen Welch on Kevin Norton's boat last week, and, we counted 22 whales on our, transects of the bay, so. They're still there. We're hoping they leave,
Outbacks or,
no right whales.
Right wheels.
Wrong ones, we call them wrong.
But they actually had a neat thing they were trying to do. They have a thing that tests. Oh boy, when the zooplankton is eating the phytoplankton, they give off a gas, and they have a machine that can sucks up water and runs it through a machine, and it kicks back a signal. And they were trying to correlate the presence of whales to spikes in this gas. So what's the big deal, you know, why are we doing this? We said, well, that plankton, the zooplankton that the whale eats on the, whatever species it is, that comes in a spat stage, like out in Wilkinson's Basin, and it just hither and thither and ends up in areas of the bay where it kind of sets, and then through either length of day, water temperature, something like that, it'll kick off. And then the zooplankton kicks off shortly thereafter, and so then everybody's eating everybody, and the whales are in there. But those congregations of krill tend to stay in their own spots, so they can close those. They can make this closure a lot more succinct.
Small areas.
Instead of just this big draconian, okay, shut everything off, they can keep it to those more localized areas where the whales are tending to. Then they do, when they get together, they're pretty well tightly packed. So yeah, so it's good. It's, you know, at first you're kind of like shaking your head, like, wow, what are we doing here? But at the end of the day, if we can, you know, if we can get this, I forget how big the closure is, I'll make sure about it. You know, if they can zone that into a much smaller closure, you're still gonna have whales. When they depart the bay, they'll be coming up. They were creeping up towards Plymouth, where we saw most of them the other day. But that's good, because that means they're on the way out. They'll come up the bay.
Yeah. Head on that.
Scoot.
The next meeting. Will they go north after, they're in here?
Yeah, they work their way back up into the larger Gulf of Maine and up towards Fundy and stuff like that, and then some, I guess, go outside of that as well. As long as they're out of here, I'm okay with it.
The question, is there a speed zone restriction still, or where is that, and how many knots? Is
Yeah,
it
it's
10
still
knots?
that mass restricted area, it's still 10 knots.
For anybody over 65 feet or under? Or
The
both?
last thing I saw, they wanted everybody doing 10 knots.
In the new open wedge, is there a speed restriction?
I don't know if there's an overlap there.
Okay, yeah, fine.
But you see the tugboats are still honking along at 50.
We want to stop the high-speed ferry from being high-speed in Nantucket, so that'll be an interesting discussion.
Yeah.
I do have a couple of questions.
Is that it, Dave?
Yeah, that's, I mean, the wedge opening back up was actually a good victory for the MLA. Where that judge says you have, you know, he told no, he said, well, you guys don't have the data to warrant shutting that area down. Plus that whole, what is it, the Chevron laws that they're fighting now? No one was making laws that they didn't have power or right authority
Yeah.
to make. And so that's been a big court battle, and if they can flip that, that would be good, because there's a ton of stuff that no one's done, that they just make rules kind of willy-nilly. Call them laws, but they never went through Congress, so they're not actually laws. So, no one notified nobody, no, that's how that worked, even though you remember the after school special of the, I'm only a bill, sit here and have a bill.
They missed that.
They missed that one. But yeah, so the judge has put on hold no new restrictions till 2028. He said, come back with data to make sense of this closure.
Good
We'll
news.
think about it.
Yeah.
But if you guys can't prove data, this should be closed.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, it's really good stuff.
Yeah, I really appreciate the update. Q&A. David?
Yeah, just two things for Harbor Master Home. Any update on the dumpsters for the dump?
The program is over, done.
Okay, so we won't get that back.
Call Nipworth.
Who?
Nipworth.
I thought that's what you said, but I wanted to make sure. And do we get any update from Army Corps on the jetty, the North Jetty?
Is that
They know about it, they were putting it in their budget.
Yeah, it's a big hole in the jetty that's
In the federal.
not
budget,
getting any better.
They were putting it in the federal budget in probably 26. I think.
So how bad's that hole?
It's
Is
on
it-
one side that's really bad.
So it's probably,
It's as big as this area here, would you say, Dave?
I got a picture of
Yeah, it's,
somebody standing in it.
so it's probably time to get our,
It's not one or two rocks.
They were all down there, there's, Warren's office, Marky's office, everybody was there.
okay. That means we gotta get back on it.
That's why it's on the.
Can you do an emergency
Yeah,
measure?
everyone's at-
State of it.
Yeah, that's a good question. If it breaks through, that's another possibility. Any other questions from anybody, any board, guys out there in, TV land? Any questions for anybody? Any other questions here?
I think I saw Brian.
He's just scratching his beard. Brian saying, get me out of here, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Hey,
I'll do a roll call vote. Mike Gibbons,
Aye.
Stephen, Brian,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Howie,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
and Brian.
aye.
And Dave Deneen, yes, thank you everyone for attending. Great to see you. Thank you for all the input. See you soon.